I think your hockey career is kind of interesting just in the way it started because neither of your parents played hockey growing up,
No,
but you got into hockey. So, what was it for you that got you into playing hockey?
yeah, both my parents played baseball, so I don't know if they were a bit bummed when I didn't pick it, but that's okay. So I think it's okay now. So
Tried to send a puck to the front, and then now Clark following up. Open side, they score! The first goal of his OHL career for Ben Pickell.
Osborne to Pickell, scores! Ben Pickell gets the goal, and the Panthers retake the lead.
One door closes, another one opens. As you don't see that door, but it's the most important one. Just looking forward, and when people tell you you're too small or whatever, it's honestly just you just take out the noise and you just keep putting the best foot forward.
The Pickering Panthers are Buckland Cup champions in 2022. Finds his man up the ice, and Pickell a shot. He scores. Ben Pickell, and Canada Ace has a 3-1 lead. Pickell trying to work his way to the front of the net. Backhand forehand. He scores a beauty.
All right, joined now by Ben Pickell, who's had a heck of a career in his junior hockey time. Ben, I just there's so many ways I think we could kind of start this, but I just kind of want to start with a quote that I remember from when you and I were in Pickering, and when you said, "When one door closes, another door opens." And I feel like that's kind of the way that you've lived your whole career, because you've had doors opening and closing left, right, and center. Like when you think back on your junior hockey career and just kind of the way everything panned out, like that's got to be like a big success story for you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, super happy to be on here, and it's a roller coaster. It's not really a straight line, but for me, honestly, it was just super thankful for all the people I met and all the experiences, whether it was in the OJHL, OHL, going out east to play at the World Junior A. Like it was just super fortunate, and in the moment it was super tough, getting cut from a couple teams, but I was super happy the way it worked out, and I couldn't look back on it any better.
Well, thanks so much for tuning into the Sideline Podcast. Thomas West here. This is the story of Ben Pickell, a junior hockey player whose career, whose goals shifted so many times that the ultimate goal, when it was all said and done, was to prove people wrong. But he was a guy who battled through all the adversity that was thrown his way, and ended up putting together a career that was certainly something to be proud of. And we should have known that Ben's hockey story was going to be a winding road right from the beginning, because the very first hurdle they had to get over as a 15-year-old kid was when COVID shut down his hockey season. And like many hockey players during this time, had to go through the nervous roller coaster as his fate as an OHL player was decided when he didn't even get to play hockey in that season. So COVID was such an interesting time, especially for hockey players, because I mean that was like the worst season to lose ever, right? Because it was right before your draft year, and I remember I was doing some stuff working on getting some kids drafted into the Ontario Hockey League at the time, and it was brutal because all these scouts were asking like, we have no video to see of these kids. Like, did you feel like that? Helped you or hurt you, or, was that kind of a challenge just watching this season go by, knowing that your fate was being determined by these scouts in the Ontario Hockey League, but there wasn't really much you could do about it?
Yeah, no, it was super tough. Just honestly, from not being able to go on the ice was, the biggest thing. You want to be out there with your buddies. I've been playing with the same guys for 10 years, so having that taken away from me and was super hard. But I mean, you couldn't really do much about it. So that's when I really started getting to working out and kind of like finding that next gear. And I was lucky to be on. We were pretty good the year before, so had a decent year. And that was kind of right before like the live barn and all that came out. So it was hard, but then there's a couple of showcases that I could attend, and I'm glad it worked out.
So you heard Ben Pickell mention Live Barn there. That was the video system that were basically like security cameras that were planted around rinks in the GTHL and leagues where kids that were going to go to the Ontario Hockey League were getting drafted from. And that was kind of the only video that scouts had to go off at the time because players weren't really playing in Hockey Canada sanctioned tournaments because of COVID. It had shut everything down. So the only video that these scouts had to look at was these security camera videos from a year ago to try and get these kids scouted. But it all worked out for Ben Pickell because the Barrie Colts took Ben in the third round of the OHL priority selection. When you knew that you were going to have a shot at being an Ontario Hockey League player, like how exciting was that for you?
Yeah. That was a crazy time because it was during COVID. So we didn't really have, a season then. And, when that day came, it was super special. I had all my family here and, I remember it like it was yesterday. So that was super special for me and my family. And, to have that opportunity to get your name called was, I'll never forget that. And, then you kind of reflect on, what's next.
Yeah, and what's next was a question that would go on to be asked a lot in Ben Pickell's junior career. But for now, Ben Pickell would start his junior career playing for the Pickering Panthers in the Ontario Junior Hockey League. A very normal way for a third-round draft pick in the Ontario Hockey League to start their career in junior.
Sidesteps a check there from Ben Pickell. Lucas Littlejohn to Tomlinson. Send a long pass, and here comes Ben Pickell. Scores! Ben Pickell ties the game. Wow, a smart shot, and I think he went 5-hole there, did the Barrie Colts prospect.
For Pickering. Russell now steals. Oh, he gives it away. Pickell shoots. Scores! Ben Pickell, the game-winning goal for the Pickering Panthers. And they win in overtime. 4-3 over the Georgetown Raiders.
And Ben was playing great as a member of the Pickering Panthers. In fact, he had 5 goals in his first 6 games playing junior hockey. Great start. And the Barrie Colts noticed because on January 8th, he was called up to the big club.
Ronick Jodwen crosses the blue line. Tried to send a puck to the front, and then now Clark following up. Open side, they score! The first goal of his OHL career for Ben Pickell. Fourth line, left winger. Played a good game against North Bay last week. Set up nicely by Brant Clark.
So that was the first goal in Ben Pickell's OHL career, and let me tell you, it didn't take him long. That was just his second game. His first 2 games in the OHL were against North Bay. This one was in North Bay. The one before that was at home in Barrie. He got called up in January, which is pretty good. That's about halfway through the season. That's pretty good for a third-round draft pick playing their first season in the Ontario Hockey League. At the time, Barrie had a bunch of young players. A lot of their early round draft picks were on the team, and this was a great start for Ben Pickell to score a goal in his second OHL game. Excellent. And by the way, it was Brant Clark who passed him the puck, and he did pretty well in his OHL and now National Hockey League career. Ben would go on to score another goal later on in the year in a game in Barrie, and would close out that season with a nice chunk of playing time in the Ontario Hockey League to set him up nicely for next season to play on the Barrie Colts. Maybe let's start with a nice moment. Like when you were right at the beginning of your career, you scored your first goal. It was in North Bay. You were playing for Barrie at the time. And I remember, this was kind of one of the first times that we talked because we did an interview on Rogers TV after that.
Yeah.
I know you had some family members watching your games back in Pickering. You must have some people who are pretty excited to have you in the OHL playing for the Barrie Colts and getting your first OHL goal back home.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people who are pretty excited, like old coaches. Like everyone, all my old teammates and stuff were posting about it, so it got a smile on my face, and it's been good, yeah.
Congrats on the goal, Ben, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Just a moment like that for you in your career, is that still something you kind of look back on and maybe smile a bit at?
Yeah, for sure. I remember it. Pretty clearly. I came off the bench and Brant Clark passing the puck. So he didn't turn out too bad. So just even having that, him assisting my first goal was pretty special. Just kind of went on my knees after I scored. Like I did like a 360 or something. I don't know what I was doing. It was just pure joy. But that was super nice to get out of the way. I think it was a couple games in, so that was nice, and kind of get the ball rolling. And that was a really good group too. They had a good year, and just the memories I made were carry with me forever.
So Ben would end up spending 2 months in the Ontario Hockey League before getting sent back down to the Pickering Panthers. In his time in the OHL, scored 2 goals, picked up 2 assists, played 17 games. He did end up playing a game a month later in April, but this was pretty much it for Ben's OHL season this year. But getting sent down to the team that he started with ended up being a bit of a blessing in disguise, because the Pickering Panthers went on a magical run this season.
Loses it. Partridge holds on to it. Now back to the point. Tomlinson takes the shot, scores! And we have a new single-season points record of 75 as history is made tonight at the Pickering Recreation Complex. Perry, Martin walks below the goal line, drops for Perry. He tries to cycle to Rodas, goes back to Ian Martin. Walks, takes the shot, scores! Ian Martin, the overtime winner, and the Pickering Panthers strike first. Across seam, pass to Bertrand! Oh my goodness! What a save by Zach Roy, sprawling across the crease, and that's the best save we've seen all season from anyone.
Around. Barkley cut off. Trying to pry it loose as Lindsay out in front. Trying to find Perry. Tomlinson with the drive to the net. They score. The Pickering Panthers have scored with 37.7 seconds left to go in regulation. What an unbelievable ending to this. The Pickering Panthers are Buckland Cup champions in 2022.
The Buckland Cup in Pickering. I mean, anytime you can win a championship anywhere, I know that's a really special moment. And, I know you didn't play in that Game 7, but, I know you were a really good teammate on that team. And, that team really rallied behind you. I just remember you running out on the ice, at the JRC arena when Pickering won that Buckland Cup. Like, just that moment for you, that had to be cool as well.
Yeah, especially my first year, I was like, got to get used to winning this. But I remember, I came back from Barrie, like it was super tough. Like I think halfway through the year, just same thing mentally, like couldn't really find my game again. And then when we got to the final there in Game 7, I remember I think Johnny scored and Scotty Nicholson was standing beside me, and I like jumped into his arms and he like held me up like it was like Lion King. So I know he'll have a chuckle here in this one, but just that stuff and the group of guys there just speaks volume to what they brought to the table. And I think that group like constructively was one of the best I've probably ever seen. From like Lindsay, LaPalme to like I said, Hutton and those guys. And then Roy in the back. And if you had Bally stood up on his head for a couple of games there too, which was huge. It was kind of shows what kind of playoffs are and how everyone needs to step up. And then I guess the Centennial Cup just speaks for itself. How that group was just so close, and everyone just brought something to the table that was beneficial. And as a younger guy, like that, it was really meaningful. Like just how guys approach the game and help me out and just kind of show me the ways.
And of course, a Buckland Cup means the Pickering Panthers won the OJHL, so they're headed to the Junior A National Championship, the Centennial Cup in Estevan, Saskatchewan. And what does Ben Pickell do in his very first game in a national championship? He scores against the Red Lake Miners. Do you remember that goal?
I do, actually. A little bit. I think it got turned over in the neutral zone or something, and I want to say Johnny passed it to me. I was flying, and I think I had a partial breakaway, forehand, backhand, and then hit the dice roll Selly. So I think the boys remember that one a little bit. So that was nice to get that one out of the way, and just to kind of set the tone for the tournament. And because you're playing those other leagues, you got no idea what they are. They all got visors. You're like, we're just in cages over here, and so that was good to get the first one. And then that whole tournament, guys stepped up left, right, and center. Like Kavlin scoring a big goal, Alto, Rosie, Partridge, like all those guys. It was just that was a good tournament. That was a fun time. And we're in Estevan, so we had no idea what to do, but we made the most of it. So probably got on Luker's nerves a little bit too much.
I thought that was an interesting comment there from Ben about visors and cages, because I completely forgot about that at the time. But in the OJHL, everyone had to wear a cage, which that was a little bit different in the Ontario Hockey League, because Ben playing his first year and being the youngest on the team meant that he was in a cage, because you had to be a certain age or have a certain amount of service time in the OHL before you could move to the visor. So that was a reality that Ben learned pretty quickly in the Ontario Hockey League, because he was one of the only ones in the cage, and everyone would know that he was the youngest guy on the team. But in Pickering, everyone had cages on, and there were lots of other teams that had visors. And I remember that being an interesting rule, because in other junior A leagues, it wasn't a rule that you had to wear a full cage like in the OJHL. So I remember we were kind of coming back to the hotel and saying, well, we can't get double minor high sticking penalties because we have full cages on. So they're never going to draw blood if we get a high sticking penalty. Anyway, it wasn't a big deal and didn't end up being a big thing, but just a bit of a visual for you in that tournament, and something I kind of forgot. So the Pickering Panthers did not just play in the national championship, they made it all the way to the final, and it was an unbelievable ride to get there. Going back to you here, Ben, it's a hot start for you. You get a goal in your first game. How does that feel, getting the goal in the new barn and the crowd as well?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I saw Johnny coming up the wall, and I know we could create a 2-on-1, so I just drove to the net. He made a nice pass and fed me, so I just had to get the job done and bury it. So, but it was a good time. Good crowd today. A lot of kids cheering for the Panthers, so it was nice to see that.
Yeah, pretty sick Sally on him too. So I know the boys were fired up. First game back in a while, so he came out hot and had a good goal, so gets the boys fired up.
LaPointe golfs it to center. Kavlin shoots. They score. It's over. The Panthers have won it in double overtime, and we will get that second quarterfinal game. The Panthers are celebrating. Jamie, what did I say? A shot from the blue line through traffic. A seeing eye shot. Beats Cal Shell up over the blocker.
Yeah, I was fired up, but I also just felt so relieved for, all the 20-year-olds in the team, work their ass off every night, come in, battle, since September, October, and they're not done, we're not done, we're here to win it.
The other big moment that I remember from Estevan is just that game against Brooks. And, I think this kind of speaks to, you were talking about Rob Pearson and just kind of the impact that he's had in your junior career. Like, do you remember the night before when, everyone was sitting at the dinner table and Rob Pearson said, we're going to play things a little differently in that game against the Brooks Bandits? Like, just maybe speak to him as a coach a little bit in that moment and how everyone kind of could buy into that. And, that must have been a crazy thing because, on this podcast, we've done the whole story about all of this. But, I remember that, everyone was in the parking lot, right? That day before, kind of going over the game plan of what was going to happen. But that had to just be such a crazy thing where you're going up in the national championship final and like this is what it's all coming down to.
It was one game, and we knew we had to give them a good run after. I think we got blown out the game before by them or something. But Robbie brought all the boys to like the parking lot and was like demoing guys. Like he was like grabbing guys' heads and like moving it around. I was like, this is junior, like what's going on here? Like all the guys are like looking at each other like, it's got to work. So I think he knew a guy in that league. He's like, this is how you got to beat them. And we had them on the ropes for the whole game. And they kind of did, but the goalie stuck, hung in there for us. I think we got one early. Forget who scored, but that was nice. I remember. Yeah, I might have had like 2 shifts, and I think the one shift I thought I was going, and I hopped the boards. Robbie probably used a couple of curse words to get me. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, man, I'm just so excited to get out there. And I got half the older guys yelling at me. I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? So, but yeah, he's, he really kind of shaped my playing career. And, I always remember what kind of he taught me. So I'm super thankful for Robbie.
And after waiting for 2 long years without this championship, the Brooks Bandits go back to back at the Centennial Cup.
For the younger guys here that got pieces of time, look up to some of these guys and just say, that's where I want to be. I want to be a leader. Lindsay was here when he was 16. He didn't get an opportunity to get as much ice, and he bought in and he just kept climbing the ladder. Lindsay climb. That's what the younger guys you need to do. Wherever you go, if you stay here, if you go wherever, climb the ladder. Climb the ladder like these overages and represent somewhere. You played in May and you're champions now. You're champions, believe in that, okay?
That was Coach Rob Pearson's speech after the Pickering Panthers lost 4-1 in the national championship final. An incredible run by a team and an inspirational speech after as well. In the 22-23 season, Ben Pickell made the Barrie Colts out of training camp. And as he expected, played in the Barrie Colts' very first game of the season against the Oshawa Generals. And then once again, slowly had it ripped away as he didn't play and was a healthy scratch for a month, which would eventually lead to him getting sent back down to Pickering. I'm just kind of wondering, every player kind of has that make or break moment. Like, I feel like that was part that either could have broke you or it ended up making you into the player you are. Because, I remember talking to you in your first year in Pickering, and then you came and said hi to me in like your second year in the OHL. I knew you'd been just hitting the gym a whole bunch because you shake my hand and I mean, you almost gripped my hand off.
Yeah.
Like that was a kind of a make or break moment for you, maybe in a motivation sense. But, was there ever a moment where you thought like, maybe this isn't going to work out?
Yeah. I think, in my first year, I was like, okay, maybe this is not going to happen right away. But I think one I look back on all the time is, I think it was my second year I was struggling and maybe didn't go get a point or something. I just got cut again. And, Rob brought me in and he's like, you got two ways to look at this. Like either pack it in or you can, keep grinding and it's all going to work out. And, we had a kind of a heart to heart and, told him what I thought and, how I saw it. And he told me the same. And he really had a lot of meaning towards it. And, that's one that I look back on and, I'm super thankful that happened because I was kind of struggling mentally and, internally, wouldn't really let it out. And he kind of helped me, broadcast it a little bit to him and kind of see, how I was feeling. And that kind of turned me around a little bit and, kind of realized that, we're all in this together.
Now, of all the seasons for Ben Pickell to not be in the Ontario Hockey League, this was the one with the most significance. So later on in the season when Ben was playing with the Pickering Panthers, he got selected to play in the Eastern Canada Cup. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this tournament, it's basically a tournament for non-overage players, and it's almost like a precursor to the World Junior A Challenge, which is essentially the World Juniors, except for players playing in Junior A. So the tournament that you watch at Christmas time with Team Canada. In the Eastern Canada Cup, though, there were a lot of teams selected and very few players would go on to play in the World Junior A Challenge, representing one of 2 Canadian teams in that tournament. So Ben Pickell was selected to one of the 2 OJHL represented teams. There was Team Howardchuck and Team Oates, and Pickell made it to Team Oates. So obviously the end goal is to try and make Team Canada and of course win the tournament with Team Oates for Ben Pickell. And there's a long way to go before making Team Canada. But just to be selected for that tournament, that's a pretty big honor in the OJHL. And to make Team Canada, that would be crazy, right? Well, Ben, you've been rewarded for your hard work lately. You got named to Team Canada East playing at the World Junior A Challenge. What does that mean to you to get named to that team?
Yeah, no, it means a lot. When I got the call, I was almost like kind of teared up a little bit. I can't lie. It's something you dream of as a kid. You know, when you're watching the World Juniors, you're always like, I want to have that maple leaf on my chest. And honestly, it's just everything I've kind of been through recently. It's all about the next one door closes, another one opens. You don't see that door, but it's the most important one. Just looking forward, and you know, when people tell you you're too small, or whatever, it's honestly just. You just take out the noise and you just keep putting the best foot forward, so it's awesome.
Yeah, and then when my third year came around, you know, that was something I looked forward to at the start of the year and kind of had in the back of my mind, like going into the year, you know, if things didn't work out in the OHL. So, you know, when that opportunity came to try out, you know, I think I had a decent first half and went to tryouts in Trenton, and I actually struggled the first couple of games. And then I think they moved me to center, and you know, I got the call a couple weeks later, and I remember I was out in my driveway and was my mom, and it was pretty special. You know, just to put that flag on that you dream about since you're a kid. So, you know, that was a moment too where I think, you know, I was going into it like if I had a good tournament, you know, I think things could, you know, maybe shape up even, you know, that year. Or the next year. And
so Ben Pickell knew that this wasn't just an opportunity to put the Canada logo on his chest. It was also an opportunity to finally get recognized and get his shot at the next level, because there was going to be a lot of eyeballs from teams that were a higher level than the Pickering Panthers watching this tournament. And what do you know? Ben Pickell had a really good World Junior A challenge.
Nice turn by Lazard. Finds his man up the ice, and Pickell a shot! He scores! Ben Pickell at Canada Ace has a 3-1 lead.
Ben's Team Canada East would go on to earn the silver medal, and Ben Pickell in 6 games was 4th on the team in goal scoring. 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points, and put on a performance that was worthy of playing at the next level. With silver medal in hand, Ben Pickell headed back to finish out his season with the Pickering Panthers. Now, although Ben was having a great season, the Pickering Panthers did not look like they were going to be a competitive team down the stretch. So, at the OJHL trade deadline, Ben Pickell was a top target for some of the best teams in the OJHL. And after the trade deadline had come and gone, Ben Pickell found himself traded to the Trenton Golden Hawks. And with the help of their new acquisition, Trenton made it all the way to the OJHL finals. Unfortunately, Pickell got hurt in that final series, and the Golden Hawks weren't able to win the Buckland Cup, but Pickell had a great playoffs with his new team. And let's get back to Ben Pickell's goal of making the Ontario Hockey League, because this wasn't just a great opportunity to win a championship for Pickell. It was a great opportunity to impress some scouts from just down the road from the Kingston Frontenacs, a team in the Ontario Hockey League who was rebuilding and looking for a diamond in the rough that they could add to their roster. And after the season, Kingston asked the Barrie Colts if they could acquire Ben Pickell's rights, and Ben Pickell was headed back to the Ontario Hockey League, and this time for good.
Yeah, Longos are the both coaches. One's in Kingston, one's in Trenton. So obviously I think that helps a little bit. But I know I talked to Coop. He was maybe looking to acquire me the year before too, but just with numbers didn't work out. So I kind of just had that mindset going to Trenton, like I'm here to win a championship. And unfortunately, I got hurt in the final, which it wasn't fun. But and then getting that call from Coop the next summer was something I'll never forget. Kind of that dream to get back in the league and show what I think maybe people have been missing a little bit, and prove people wrong was my biggest thing. So
first man to the puck, out front, Pickell had to take shots on the backhand, scores. Took it off his skate, kicked it up to the stick, backhand, and he scores.
Well, Krawcheck was going one way, and Pickell reversed the puck on the backhand.
Krawcheck, have a look here.
Well, Hayes is going to get it out here. Great hands by Ben Pickell.
Boy, oh boy. Is that all hooked up? Pickell with a short-handed break, moving in on Humphreys. Takes him out of his jock strap for a short-handed goal for the Kingston Frontenacs.
Well, it looked like Pickell was going to shoot it, and then puts the move on Humphreys.
Yeah, and you did. You proved people wrong. Like, you came out, had a great season in Kingston, and everyone was thinking, why wasn't this guy in the Ontario Hockey League all along? And, I remember you having a good year, which was great, but I also remember, the fans in Kingston really gravitated towards you, right? Like, you came in, you had the name Pickell, so they loved that, and then they saw you play. And I think that's where it really, that relationship between you and the fans in Kingston, like, that must have been such a cool thing for you.
Yeah, that was super neat. Honestly, from day one, I kind of fell in love with Kingston. Like, I've been there before, but I hadn't really got the experience. Like, it's right on the water. Like, it's beautiful. Like, we would start of the year, we'd go to practice and head to the beach, like with like all the students, like, and we just play spike ball or whatever. So that was a lot of good team bonding early, like getting to know the guys. Like, but yeah, even in playoffs, like, it was just electric. They said they sold out in like 10 years or something. So for that, and there's a buzz in the city. Like, that was honestly one of the best times, playing. And our captain, his buddies, I guess, were they came down for playoffs and were in Pickell costumes. So to have that kind of support was super neat. And those are all great guys. And that was a fun year. Unfortunate ending, but I still talk to probably half the guys there. So.
And Ben had a great year this season with the Kingston Frontenacs. He really did prove people wrong. Like, it was incredible that we saw Ben Pickell play this well in the Ontario Hockey League, and this was just his first full season in the OHL. Like, it really felt like Ben proved people wrong, and he should have probably been in the Ontario Hockey League all along. Although the story probably would have been much different if he hadn't faced that adversity. But what I thought was the most incredible thing about this season for Pickell was his relationship with the fans. And, you don't always see fan favorite players. Like, there isn't every season where the fans gravitate towards one player. Like, you got to be a really special player for fans to kind of, start chanting your name, or, as you heard Ben Pickell talk about there, show up with Pickell costumes on, representing his last name. So I think the fans in Kingston recognized what type of player Ben was, and there was just something about him that captivated the interest of everyone in Kingston at the time.
You were an assist away from a Gordie Howe hat trick tonight. Did you know that?
Yeah, but the win, so I love it. Let's go.
Towards the bench, started out, then glided back in. Here's Gandon, rolling puck, trouble deflection, scores! Gandon with a puck up on edge, put it towards the net, and Pickell got a piece. And the Fronts are to within one, 3:21 to go.
And if I told you back in the day that you'd be here in the Ontario Hockey League as an everyday player for the Kingston Frontenacs, back when you're playing for the Pickering Panthers back in the day, what would you have said?
Yeah, I'd probably say you're lying, but, I've been through a lot, so just kind of shows what person I am. I think, I've learned a lot about myself through the adversity and ups and downs, and, I'm thankful for the opportunity Kingston's gave me, and I'm just hoping we can win here. That'd mean something special for me.
Ben, back in the day, you told me that kind of your mindset was when one door closes, another door opens. That's kind of been the journey to the Ontario Hockey League, hasn't it, for you over the last couple of years? How important has it been just to have that mindset in your journey to get here?
Yeah, I think as a younger player in the league, you want to make that jump right away, but obviously that didn't happen. And I think, as you grow as a person, mentally, physically, like, you got to take it as it comes, and it's not going to happen all at once, and it's going to happen over 4 years, and it's been adversity, but I'm super thankful to be here with this group of guys, and it's going to be a good year.
Ben, it's awesome to see you here, and good luck in this next 40.
Yeah, thank you.
Ben Pickell from the Kingston Frontenacs. We'll be right back. Okay, so Ben had a nice scholarship built up in the Ontario Hockey League where he could go to an Ontario university and start his college career because he'd played for a couple seasons in the league. So that's a great benefit to playing in the OHL. There's a few options, though, for players that are entering into their age 20 season. So Ben was 19 at the time, so his options were either go to university, which is the easiest option, I think, at the time as a 19-year-old. Another one of the likely options was go back and play Junior A hockey again for, I guess it would be the Trenton Golden Hawks for Ben, because you can have 8 overagers in that league, which we'll get into in just a moment. Or you can play in the Ontario Hockey League as an overager. So if you're unfamiliar with what overagers are, it's 20-year-old players. So in Junior A, a team can have 8 overagers. Teams that win championships are always full of them because they're the most experienced players, and you can have a roster just full of 20-year-old players in Junior A. In the OHL, since they consider it a development league and they want to have as many NHL draft-worthy players in the league as possible, they limit every team to 3 overage players, which means that there is a whole lot of 19-year-olds that are not going to be overagers just because there simply is not a spot for them in the Ontario Hockey League. And, you know, if you asked Ben Pickell when he was struggling to get into the OHL, if he was going to end up being an overager one day in the Ontario Hockey League, that would seem just crazy. Although, once again, Ben proved people wrong, and he was no way in the OHL.
Ben Pickell has been sent from the Kingston Frontenacs to the Sarnia Sting for a 10th round pick in 2029.
When you think about, becoming an overager in junior hockey, I remember talking to your parents about this when you were in Pickering, and I'm gonna be honest, we were once you're 19, that's probably it. And I don't know if maybe you thought that as well, and then you end up being an overager in playing for Sarnia. Did you ever think that, after the way this whole thing started, that you would be an OA playing in the OHL?
Yeah, there was no way. A lot of doubts crept into the mind for sure. But like I said, in Kingston, I was kind of just wasn't thinking about the next year. I was kind of wanted to win and help out this group, and lucky enough had a good playoffs, and and then started that year, this year here. Just with a numbers game, it just didn't work out, which happens. And when Sika called me, I was thrilled. I wasn't sure if I was going to get sent down or whatever. It was kind of, I was pretty stressed out, kind of to see how the cards would fold. But to be an overager is pretty special. And with the whole landscape kind of changing with NCAA, I wasn't sure who was staying, kind of which guys were going. So
okay, hold that thought right there. Those used to be the options for players in their overage season, and then everything changed with the new rules between the CHL and the NCAA. So, bear with me here. Before this season, OHL players, we're just going to use OHL as the example because we're talking about Ben, who played in the Ontario Hockey League, but technically players in the WHL and the QMJHL as well. But OHL players, if they stepped foot for just a single game in the Ontario Hockey League, they were no longer eligible to play in the NCAA Division I hockey. That is widely accepted as a much higher level of hockey than playing in the OUA, Ontario University Hockey. So naturally, if players had the option to go play in the NCAA, they would. In fact, at this time, there were a lot of players that absolutely could have been in the Ontario Hockey League, but they decided not to play in the OHL because they didn't want to ruin their eligibility to go play in the NCAA. And playing in the NCAA was a good option. Players who decided to go this route, it worked out for a lot of them. So you had players playing in Junior A that just played their whole career in Junior A, were drafted by OHL teams, but just never stepped foot in the OHL, just even though they could, because they didn't want to ruin their eligibility. Well, with this new rule change, it meant that players in the Ontario Hockey League now could play in the NCAA, and that changed everything.
It opened up a spot, and I was super thankful for that opportunity. And going to the Western Conference was, I hadn't played there much yet, so it was just a great experience.
So with these new rule changes, Ben Pickell was an overager in the Ontario Hockey League, and he had a lot to think about in his final season as well. But he focused on the hockey for the first part of the season, and introduced himself to the fans in Sarnia with an unbelievable end-to-end goal with his first as a Sarnia Sting.
2 big stops by Millette. Pickell tried to work his way to the front of the net. Backhand, forehand, he scores a beauty. Ben Pickell has his first goal in a Sarnia Sting uniform, and why not make it a highlight reel one?
And that goal was the first of many for Pickell as a Sarnia Sting. In fact, he finished the year with 24 of them in this season, 41 points in 64 games. He was third on his team in scoring and had another great year in the Ontario Hockey League. But one of the really special moments, I thought, was when Ben Pickell played his first game back in Kingston. So it came on November 16th, and the Frontenacs had a nice tribute video to him on their Jumbotron, and the fans got to say goodbye to Ben Pickell one last time. And you could tell that was a special moment for him.
Turns it over, Pickell all alone on us, backhand scores!
I thought it was cool that tribute video that Kingston did for you as well when you came back. I don't know how you could get emotional seeing that.
Yeah.
I mean, they had an ISO camera just watching you on the bench there, and I could see the look on your face. That had to be a special moment as well.
Yeah, that was super neat. The guy told me before he had something cooked up, so I was kind of waiting for that just to kind of get that out of the way, and then play the game. So, but for me, the impact I had kind of there, I didn't realize it kind of until I came back, and the people supporting and people who came out, or even I was warming up and people were coming up to me for the game. I was like, yeah, like it's good to see you, but I got to get warmed up here. So, I mean, I can always make time for those people. So, I mean, they support us night in, night out. So that was my biggest thing that, kind of showed me how much, they kind of rallied behind us, and they kind of appreciated the year previously we had. So that was super nice.
So I think junior hockey is such a funny thing because, at this point in your career, you'd had so much media attention and everything like that. And, you're a 15-year-old kid. You dream of playing in the OHL because, you see all the other players because they're getting all this attention. And, like, you guys are celebrities, right? Like, when you were playing in Kingston, like, everyone knew the name Pickell, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there a challenge of that? Like, because some players can kind of get a big head too, like,
yeah,
when all that's happened. Like, is there any kind of a challenge, just kind of, stay within yourself when all of that's going on?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, especially early on, like, I don't know, you kind of think of yourself as a big shot, but I mean, you're just kind of another guy, and, you're just kind of lucky to be in the opportunity, which you kind of learn as you mature. Yeah, no, it's just kind of, it's a kid's game. So it's like, I'm just out there kind of having fun, and, whatever comes with it, I'll, take it, and, just super happy and trying to give back as much as I can. Cause I remember when I was going to Generals games, that was a big thing too. So, also trying to teach these young guys that, you got to stay level headed and can't really get ahead of yourself. But, all the other stuff is nice, but I mean, you're just out there to play hockey at the end of the day.
Do you ever, like, kind of pinch yourself too? Like, you talked about going to Generals games. Like, when you step out there on the ice, I mean, like, almost every night there's like 4,000 people watching you play hockey. Like, how much are you kind of aware of that when you're going out and playing every night?
Yeah. Like I said, early on, it's, you're not as comfortable. Like, you're like, holy crap, there's a lot of people here, they're watching you. And then you start to get older, and it's kind of, just out there, playing a game that you love to do, which makes it a lot easier. And I mean, when you're playing bad, they know. So as long as you can stay consistent and stuff. But, there's a couple times during the, over the course of time. I think one of them, I was lucky enough to score in Oshawa this year. I hadn't done that previous, so I mean that was pretty neat.
And now the Stinger on it. Long shot to the point from O'Coin. That one's off, wrap around try, and they score. And it is Pickell. Final game in his home area, and he points up to the stands, to the family box, as Ben Pickell scores and give Sarnia a 1-0 lead. As a long shot from Hurt, I think may have been tipped on the way in by Pickell.
You're right.
And he's got his second of the game. The Curtis native, his final game in the Durham region in the Ontario Hockey League, and he and his family get to celebrate this one with a pair of goals.
Yeah, I had a box with my parents, family, friends, and a whole bunch of other people came to support. So that was probably one of the biggest moments that for me, that I kind of was like, holy crap, like this is not bad. So
you also scored in your last game in Sarnia too. Like, that was going to be your last home game as an OA. Like, was that kind of special for you as well, just to finish out your last home game like that?
Yeah, that was, just that feeling to, put the puck in the net, like you said, as the last game was pretty neat. I know I'm going to look back on even too. I think I got interviewed after the game, and, there might've been like 1,000 people still waiting, just to kind of, after that interview, I kind of skated down because it was on the other side of the ice, and, a lot of people were clapping, cheering. I did get emotional a little bit, but, held it in as much as I could. So that was pretty neat. And, everyone was just kind of thankful, and, that support they showed was, it meant a lot to me.
Okay, so let's dip back into this NCAA discussion again, because Ben Pickell, being an overager, now that he was done playing in the Ontario Hockey League, the question was, where do you go next? So if we think back to Pickell's early career, where he played a handful of games but never was able to stick in the Ontario Hockey League, you could be thinking in a scenario there, well, maybe I should have just stayed in the OJHL all along, because now my eligibility to play in the NCAA is ruined. So for the majority of Pickell's Ontario Hockey League career, or just junior career in general, he was under the assumption that going to an NCAA school and playing Division I hockey was just not going to be an option. Then, 2 seasons ago, the news breaks that now this is an option, and Pickell has a whole bunch of decisions to try and figure out where he's going next. And sure enough, things got simplified when the phone rang and Robert Morris University, a Division I school in the NCAA, wanted Ben Pickell to join their roster. Okay, the NCAA, because this is one of the big changes that happened while you were playing hockey, and I imagine that it probably changed what was happening for you in the future a lot as well. So when you hear about the new rule changes where players in the Ontario Hockey League all of a sudden can go play in the NCAA, what was your reaction when you heard that was the case?
Yeah, we heard rumblings, and I think it was after practice last year. Someone was on their phone, and they like holy crap! Like, it went through. Like, the first kind of a thought was like what does this mean? Like, how's this gonna play out? Like, is it gonna take a few years? Especially for me coming back. I was like, what is this? How is this gonna affect me or stuff? So that was the kind of first. But after that, like, it didn't really have too much effect. Like, I was kind of just out there playing the game, and whatever kind of happened. And lucky enough, this year was super fortunate for Robert Morris to reach out, and couldn't pass up on that. So it was a crazy time, but I think it's gonna work out for a lot of people.
So at the beginning of your career, when you played those first couple of games, because you only played a handful of games in your first 2 seasons in Barrie, that would have ruined your eligibility to play in the NCAA. So, I just think early on, like at the time, what was kind of the goal for you? Like, was it to try and go to a Canadian university? And did that kind of like put more pressure on like actually getting your next couple seasons in the OHL?
Yeah, it was kind of like thoughts were kind of just racing, because when I didn't play my third year, I was actually trying to go to school. I was like, kind of was like, screw this, like I'm sailing ship kind of to the States, which was it was frowned upon at the time. So it was kind of just have a play out my lifelong dream kind of, and then kind of see where the cards fold after that. I wasn't really too concerned about it, but when this opened up, and it was kind of, like I said, whirlwind, and didn't really know what to expect.
So like at the beginning of your career, I mean, I guess right at the beginning, it was probably make the NHL, right?
Yeah.
But like, how did plans change over the course of your career in terms of like, what was going to be next for you?
Yeah, I think just all about where I was in the present. Started in Pickering, and then just trying to kept kind of climb the ladder a little bit. And then the last couple of years, I think NCAA was a goal after I kind of heard the news, and whether it worked out or not, I was gonna just keep playing and had that in the back of my mind. So, but yeah, each year was kind of different. Like I was just kind of go year to year, and I've always wanted to play out, 5 years at junior, and because you're only young once, right? So that was my biggest thing, and then yeah, just kind of figure it out kind of as it goes, and keep the ball rolling as much as I can.
All right. Well, you're starting the next chapter of your junior hockey career. You're going to Robert Morris University, which I know is going to be really exciting. Like, what's the big goal now for Ben Pickell?
I mean, I think my biggest thing is I want to make the NCAA tournament with Robert Morris, and that's my goal coming in. They had a really good year this year, and I think they're trying to build off that. So, if I can do my part, then I did my job.
Okay, I want to circle back to the quote that we had at the beginning too about when one door closes, another door opens. And I remember when you said that quote, because I've read articles, I've seen you saying that throughout your junior hockey career. But when you first told me that, I remember you said that open door is the hardest one to see a lot of the time. Like, how when you think about, back to trying to see that open door over your junior hockey career, like, what was it that kind of allowed you to see that opportunity?
Yeah, actually, I got that quote from like a war movie. Actually, I was watching Netflix. I was like, I had to twist it a little bit because it said like the light you cannot see. It's actually a good TV show. So yeah, I'll give credit to that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing was like it's not going to happen overnight, and you kind of just gotta take it and run with it. And like I said earlier, being younger was super tough. You're fresh into junior, and all you want to do is just play at the highest level. And yeah, I think my parents were big supporters of me, and kind of whatever I wanted to do, like they were there to support it. And yeah, it was tough, and I just kind of had to take it weeks at a time, kind of months, like hoping to get called up. Oh, I didn't get called up. Like just keep plugging away. Like they'll be watching. So just little stuff like that it can kind of keep you motivated and keep you pushing till you finally get that foot in the door. And yeah, just being happy to where you are in the present, and not trying to look too far ahead, I guess.
Okay, one more for you, Ben. Junior hockey is such a wild ride. I've talked to so many junior hockey players that have said that it's just absolutely shaped their life into what it is today. When you look back on your junior career, what has it kind of taught you, and how has it kind of shaped you into the person that you are today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned just experiences, and meeting such great people that you can lean on now or after hockey if that's what you want to do. But yeah, it's just kind of shaped me as a person, honestly. Like living on my own or with a billet early on, kind of being responsible, and kind of after growing up pretty quick rather than being at school and coming back to the house. Like just got to manage everything, which is nice. And I mean, if you're late or anything, you'll hear it and you won't do it again. So just little stuff like that you got to learn pretty quickly that that it doesn't really fly, and what you can take with you throughout life. And just being nice to people, because you never know what's going to come back to you. And just all those little things kind of off the ice that you hear as a kid, but you kind of just like let it brush away, and you're like, I'm just here to play hockey. So that was my biggest thing. And just being super happy and grateful, and giving time to people that deserve it, and they'll do the same for you.
All right, Ben, thanks for doing this. Always great to talk to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
And that is the story of Ben Pickell's junior hockey career. What a ride it is. I mean, you think about thousands and thousands of kids go through this every single season. They get drafted. They either make it or don't make it. They play in the Ontario Hockey League. They move on to the next thing. they climb the ladder, as Ben Pickell said. And for some junior hockey players, the road is long and winding and difficult, and I would say that's what it was for Ben. But if you are strong-minded and you stick to it, you can achieve pretty much anything you set your mind to. And for Ben Pickell, it came down to patience and hard work, and he was able to achieve his goal of being an Ontario Hockey League player. And now he's moving on to the next chapter, playing at Robert Morris University. So I was fortunate to have been able to follow Ben's career from when he was 16 years old right up to his overage season. So when he got drafted in the Ontario Hockey League, he got drafted by the Barrie Colts, and I was working for the Barrie Colts at the time. And he was playing for the Pickering Panthers, and I was working for the Pickering Panthers at the time. So that's how we ended up knowing each other early on in Ben's career. And I'm glad that we met, because following his story from Pickering to Barrie to Kingston to Sarnia, mix in Trenton there as well, was pretty inspiring. And, you know, I thought it was so cool to see, you know, so many teams overlook Ben, and then he plays a full season with the Kingston Frontenacs, goes on a great run with them, and then, you know, ends up being an overager in the Ontario Hockey League. Like, I just can't tell you how unlikely that seemed when he was struggling to make the Ontario Hockey League early on, and just to see the improvement and the work ethic. And, you know, we told that story about when he didn't make the Barrie Colts for a year. He came back the next season and gave me a handshake, and he almost gripped my hand off. Like, he worked so hard and got so much stronger over his OHL career. And it was really cool to, you know, kind of be on the sidelines watching that journey. So maybe this is one of those stories that proves that patience, hard work, and determination pays off.